Hello everyone, Chrisa is here, and today we will be exploring the movement of our spine. So, just like the video before, we will have some pictures of the spine just to create the image, and then exercises that we will connect to walking. Um, what you see in the skeleton is actually quite accurate. So he's well made. Uh, what I mean to say by this is that yes, your body will probably, most likely, like 99%, will probably be different, slightly different than what you see, but the 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 structure is the same. So maybe the curves are not exactly the same, but the structure, the underlying structure is the same. So if you want to take some extra time to feel what you will see in the picture before you proceed with doing the exercises, the easiest way to do that, if you want to, is to just lie down on the floor. So if you lie down, and then you can relax the spine, and then you can feel how the lower back will lift a little bit, and the upper back will sink completely into the floor. So this is any hard surface you can lie down on will do. Your bed, not so much, because it's probably gonna sink in, and it's not gonna be all that very helpful. But that can be something that you can do in the beginning. If you're doing it on the in the gym, you can lie down on the yoga mat. If you're doing it at home, of course, you can lie down on the floor at home. Just avoid something that's very poofy. And yeah, that's something you can, a little bit of extra, if you want to get a better feeling of your spine. So, with no further ado, here we go. So if we take a look at the spine, we will notice that it is a composition of curves, opposing curves. So we start at the neck with extension, then we have flexion at the thoracic spine, extension at the lumbar spine, and flexion at the tail end. So it's like a continuous wave. And we will notice that our skeleton here, and as I said, it's a very good make, has a pretty good posture. So it's interesting if we think of all the cues that we have for good posture, how they are working against these curves. For example, squeezing your shoulder blades together is working in straightening the thoracic curve spine, or pulling the belly button to the spine is working in straightening the lumbar spine. So that might be one thing that we put a question mark on. An important spot on the spine is what we call the anatomical center in axis syllabus, and it is where the thoracic spine changes into the lumbar spine. And it is this zoomed in spot that you see on Skelly. And if you notice, it is approximately the area that your tango teacher has told you to focus on when you're leading and when you're following. And that is no coincidence, because it is a mechanical center above and below, to the right and to the left of which we have similar items, and it is a place through which and around which things are coordinated. So the anatomical center plays a central role for the spine. Left of which we have similar items, and it is a place through which and around which things are coordinated. So the anatomical center plays a central role for the spine. And for us specifically, there are a few things that we need to look at, and we will be exploring in the exercises to come. So first off, to the right and to the left of this anatomical center, you will notice that there are some facets. So there is those little ears that are scrolling against each other. So over the anatomical center, these facets are facing down. So it's one on top of the other. And then these change to facing to the right and to the left. And if you can put some motion in this picture that is static, you can imagine that if we pushed Skelly to the side, you will have these facets sliding across. And since they're sliding across, so we won't have any friction, they will inescapably, because of their position, the top of them will start to turn so they can keep on sliding. So the bottom can accommodate the side because they are more, more vertical, but the top will need to include a twist so it can accommodate to accommodate that side bend. So a side bend is not a clear and flat movement, but it includes a little bit of a twist and is what we call osculation in Access syllabus. And if we carry on with that image in our minds, you will notice that if you osculate Skelly to one side is going to shrink while the other side expands, right? Which makes sense. And you can try this on your own body. So the other question that we will be exploring is if we have a structure that it is all comprised out of curves and items set in oblique positions, and those oblique positions change as we go down and up the spine, then how can we expect that we will have movement that is clean cut, square, and flat? Let's put some action to the image. If you're going to reach down beside you, and you don't need to touch the floor like I'm doing, you will notice exactly that osculating movement. So your top shoulder will be dropping forward a little bit, will be coming a little bit more forward like you see mine. And your feet, because they are, a continuation of your hips, and your hips are connected to your spine, are also going to move. So I don't want you to keep things square. On the contrary, I want you to see how every little part of your body participates in this movement. So we don't want squareness, we want triangulated movement. So this is probably a movement that you've gone through before, and I don't want you to go to extremes. I just want you to feel how you're passing through that sweet spot every time you fully curve or attempt to fully extend the spines. You're passing from that sweet spot where every curve has found its spot in your body, and you will look differently from what I am looking in this video, but that's not the important part. And you will also feel, again, just to connect the dots, that the feet are want to curve inward, the toes want to come towards each other when you're curving, and they want to go away from each other when you are extending the spine. Also notice what we were commenting on in the beginning of the video, that exercises such as this are oftentimes used to undo the curves of the spine, because now I'm really pressing back and reversing the lumbar curve, and like you can see it again here, reversing the lumbar curve, and here I'm reversing the thoracic curve. So if we put the two together, we can make our way up. So let's see. and you can reverse and make your way down. So this is kind of interesting of how you through here. So this is your side reach. This is your side reach, and then extending the spine to come up, curving the spine to sit back down. So it's not going to be a full curve because we don't need to fully curve. But you can acknowledge that we're going past these stages and that the spine is changing throughout this exercise. And I'll change views here so you can see it better. Curve as you reach over to the side, and you can relax the feet completely. See where they end up. This is another interesting test to do. So from the curve to the extension and reverse to make your way back, or make your way into a walk. So you know what's coming. So the interesting part about this is that you go through a bandwidth of muscles instead of being strict on a stress line. So that's why I was insisting on not trying to make things square. So you feel that you're triangulating your way through, and this can lead into a back step, by the way, of course. So you triangulate your way through the movement, and this way you're going through a bandwidth of muscles in your way up and in your way down, instead of going straight up and straight down where you're going up and down the stress line. And that's why many of us end up not being able to squat or sit up and down in a chair comfortably as we age. So in this tabletop position, we have the opportunity to explore these waves that we've been talking about, this osculation, this curve and arch motion, and at the same time we'll have the opportunity to feel how we went for being four-legged to bipedals and exploring locomotion. So locomotion, let's see. We have it here. You have a crisscross action where, because one hip goes forward, the other hip goes back, the reverse is happening in the shoulders. Let's see it right here. See? The reverse is happening in the shoulders, and this way you can release opposite arm and leg. And hopefully you are already noticing this side reach that we've been talking about, and how one shoulder is further up than the other shoulder. So all these movements, and this is one of the questions that we're posing here, all these movements are combined to an efficient walk. And all these exercises are put together for you to explore each of these movements of the spine, and at the same time explore them all together. A different way, a little bit tougher if you want to go for it, a little bit more intense, is if you step back and you put yourself in a plank position, and you will see here how this locomotion action is managed. See how I end up with my hand one a little bit further than the other and not exactly square. The important element here is to avoid holding. Most of the times we want to hold, and we're told to hold our planks, and that could be helpful in a different context. But in this case, we want to be able to move while in a plank or in a tabletop position. So try to find the movement in the spine that will allow you to transition from a 4-point balance to a 2-point balance. So you can release one foot and one leg instead of engaging muscle to do so. We're going to take a few moments just to relax, take some weight off the wrists, move our spine a little bit, and then as we make our way gently up to standing, we're just going to repeat those exercises, curving and arching the back. Again, avoiding extremes, but looking for that sweet spot that where the curves of the spine fall just in place for you. They feel just needs to feel you need to feel good and strong in that position. Now it's time to walk. So we're going to see these movements in our walk, and these are the basic movements that comprise our walk. Um, we're just scratching the surface here, but it is definitely a good point, a good place to start. So we start from that osculating action. So it is that reach to the side. I've exaggerated it so you can see it better, but please exaggerate in the same way when you're practicing it at home. So the idea is for us to feel that that side bend never comes flat. There's always the twist in the upper body, and that twist, it is because of how our spine is constructed. Also, we want to feel how one side is squeezing and the other one is expanding. We want to feel how our hips are coordinating with our shoulders and how our front is coordinating with our back and our right side is coordinating with our left side, and how this is not a overall square 90-degree angle type of movement. Now, if we take it into a little bit more of a jazzy walk, you will, I'm pretty sure you've seen this in some other forms of dance. You will start to notice that how the knees are reacting to this. So both knees are bending and they're moving slightly away from each other. And you will notice that the heel of the free foot is coming in towards the center. And these are elements that are clues that this, even though we are focusing on the osculation of this side reach, it is never, it too never comes just clean. There is always combination with locomotion. So there's always other movements that are happening at the same time, and we will let them happen and we will notice the effects that they have on on our exercise, but we will focus on that side reach for now. And of course, now it's time for locomotion, or that twist that we've been talking about. So try to notice here how this is exactly the same thing, basically, uh, like the exercise we were doing on all fours or the plank, depending on what you decided to do. Notice also that it doesn't come clean. So again, one shoulder is going up while the other shoulder is going down, because that twist is embedded in the osculation, and osculation is embedded in locomotion. So one movement is not um, doesn't live without the other. Other important notes here for locomotion is as kinetic energy is builds up. So as this big item, which is our leg, swings through and takes the hip with it, uh, it would mean that less and less contraction of muscle is being used. So bring this element in, as we touched upon it when we were working in our plank and tabletop positions. Also notice how the heels, as we step forward and back, are respecting the center line of our walk, and that we have external rotation when we go forward, and internal rotation when we go back. And wave or body rolls. So this is another way our spine moves, and we're going to be exploring it in two ways. Now we're starting from the top, so we're going from head down, and we're going to go forward, and we're going to be going backwards. It's not, it is not as easy as it looks, and if it doesn't look easy, believe me, it is quite hard. But try to keep your steps smaller than you usually do. That is one. Then try to focus on not creating the step from your legs and from your feet, but creating it from the spine. Of course, the feet will move, but the source of the movement is actually your spine. So take the time to feel that this wave sends the leg out. And if we can, it is not directly that, but partly in part it is. It is actually what is happening, because the psoas, which is it's quite a huge muscle that links all the way from our hip to the anatomical center that we were talking about before. It is a strong, resilient, and flexible muscle. So movement such as this, that is a wave-like movement created from the spine, definitely feeds into the legs through the psoas, um, but is not as pronounced as we're doing it here. So try to tap into that. Now you will see that here we are starting the movement from the hips up, and that for me is a little bit more challenging. So if you are in the same category, you might not be, you don't have to. Take it a little bit slower and focus as much as you can on that, on connecting this movement of the spine with the step itself. So you've probably noticed that standing from the chair up, that this wave, can actually give you that extra little force that you need. It is exactly the same energy that we need here to help us swing that leg up and finish that extension, or swing that leg forward and move into our step. So as mentioned before, it is all connected, and one movement cannot and should not be completely disconnected from the other. Let's actually put it all together. So if you stand here, you will notice the oscillation. Then you can start generating the wave and the swing, and then through that swing, you have locomotion, and then you step. So let's see it again here. You start with this. You start with a little bit of a wave, and then you're off for the races. So try to notice how all these movements come together. Now, it is important to go for a few rounds without heels, because it is a lot easier. Um, so if you feel that one movement or the other you don't feel it in your body, um, try to exaggerate it. You can tone it down later once you wear your heels and you go for a proper tango walk. But this is the moment to deep dive into each of these movements and try to find how they are really generated, what is their purpose, how they are connected, how they are um, working in balance with one another, and find that sweet spot for you. And now with heels. So I've toned down the exaggeration quite a bit. You want to give yourself that time to uh, put it all of this into perspective, because you want to, fully connect the dots. So even though you've gone through this long process of exploring these movements, it's always good to wrap things up with something, a little something that refers directly to tango. So it will be, the connecting thread from practice to the dance floor.